I'll be taking a closer look at the body of the Multi-Stakeholder Forum and their relationship to open government and open data. This particular body kind of operates like a middle ground between Canadian civil society and Canadian government. So it's composed of 12 members, 8 from civil society and 4 from the Government of Canada. Having a forum like this is considered a best practice as part of Canada's membership in the Open Government Partnership. So this is James Cohen, the Executive Director of Transparency International Canada. Taking a look at his resume, he is an anti-corruption expert with a background in international development and security. And so his work includes advocacy, program management and design, training and research for organizations including the United States Institute of Peace, African Center for Justice and Peace Studies, the Global Organization for Parliamentarians Against Corruption, and the Geneva Center for the Democratic Control of Armed Forces. James also worked for Transparency International's Defense and Security Program from 2011 to 2013, where he focused on corruption risk to military, police, and peacekeeping, as well as advising governments and civil society. James joined TI Canada in 2016 as interim executive director and held the post of director, programs and engagement, before becoming executive director, where he is addressing issues such as white-collar crime enforcement. So, Transparency International is a registered charity, and there's a range of backgrounds on this board, as it's made up with experts from throughout from the private sector and civil society, all with a vested interest in creating transparency within Canadian businesses, both at home and abroad, and strengthening Canadian transparency and anti-corruption legislation. If you say so, we're going to look at the background of this particular person within the organization, who's the chair and president. And as well, might I add that the volunteers are what oversee the donations of this particular charity. So, Susan Coate Freeman is an experienced anti-corruption professional whose career with the International Secretariat of Transparency International spanned almost 2 decades. And throughout her career with Transparency International, she's worked in London, Washington, D.C., and Berlin. As head of Transparency International's Business and Integrity Program, Susan led projects aimed at raising standards of corporate anti-corruption practice. She represented Transparency International on global and anti-corruption initiatives such as the United Nations Global Compact, the Partnering Against Corruption Initiative of the World Economic Forum, and the B20. Following her career at Transparency International, Susan worked for the Conference Board of Canada, where she managed an executive network of some 60 Canadian risk professionals and carried out research in the governance, compliance, and risk areas. Susan has been a member of the board of Transparency International since 2016, and she's also a member of the board and past president of Impact, a Canadian nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing the problem of conflict minerals. So, in particular, I mentioned that she had served with the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, and in particular, I want to say that this will probably be a common ground and recurring theme throughout. So there we have James Cohen's resume there. Essentially, I'm not going to just reread what I had already read to you. But the next person, in particular, close to 20 years of experience with building community solutions through research, partnership development, and program design. She's currently the director of the Ottawa Local Immigration Partnership, where she is responsible for facilitating the establishment and implementation of community-wide vision and strategy for improving the settlement and integration of immigrants in Ottawa. and previously she worked as the Director of Research at the Social Planning Council as a Director of Impact and Investment at United Way, centered Ottawa. Hindia's academic background is varied. She holds a master's degree in economics from the University of Ottawa and professional diplomas in business administration and management, information technology, and communication. She's also fluent in 4 international languages, including both official languages. So the next person we're going to be looking at works for the International Data Corporation, and that is Javier over here. He has an extensive international career background leading major projects in technology, digital policy, online communications, and politics in Europe and North America. And he's passionate about the development of a more democratic, inclusive, and transparent society with a focus on new communication and civic engagement technologies. So it sounds like you want to implement technology all across different communities. And as for inclusivity and a democracy in and of itself, democracy sort of implies that everybody gets a voice, but it's not exactly synonymous with freedom, especially when people are told how to think and what to say. And this is even pretty well done through the Sustainable Development Goals, especially with a lot of the Marxist ideology that is sort of planted there and sort of spewed by different corporations and organizations that are directly attached and affiliated with the United Nations Agenda 2030. So Javier obtained his PhD in political communication from the European University Institute, and the PhD dissertation explored and analyzed the interactions networks of users under Twitter hashtags of European relevance. The PhD dissertation was awarded Best Thesis in Political Communication from the Spanish Association of Political Communication. And he's been a senior researcher at the Digital Democracies Institute at the Simon Fraser University, focusing on disinformation, digital policies, and digital government, and previously has been visiting scholar at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University, and currently is a consulting manager at International Data Corporation Canada, and he's working on tech market intelligence and advisory services, conducting research and analysis on leading-edge information technologies such as cloud computing, security, and networks, and helping clients and organizations to upscale their digital transformation. So it sounds very much like, again, technology is part of this particular character's game here, and implementing that all across the board through different corporations and such. So the International Data Corporation is the premier global provider of market intelligence advisory services and events for the information communications and technology markets. Our people, data, and analytics create global technology insights that accelerate customer success. More than 1,300 analysts worldwide. IDC offers global, regional, and local expertise on technology and industry opportunities and trends in over 110 countries. And it's located in Toronto, and it is part of the vast analyst network. It has more analysts dedicated to understanding the Canadian market than any other global research firm, with a strong team of analysts and consultants in Canada complementing IDC's international research expertise. IDC Canada is the leading provider of industry research and analysis in the region. So for more than 35 years, IDC has provided strategic insights to help clients achieve their key business objectives. So as well, IDC is a wholly owned subsidiary of International Data Group, which is the world's leading media data and marketing services company that activates and engages the most influential technological buyers. So, in particular, yeah, like I said, the recurring theme of this video is going to be data management and collection. So the next person we're going to look at is Jerry Conga, who's the executive director and board chair of Go Open Data Association, or GOOD. Jerry Conga has 40 years experience in public, private, and not-for-profit sectors in diverse areas, including GIS services, land information management, public policy development, IT consulting, intelligent community assessment, and open government and open data strategic and tactical plan development and implementation. He is an innovator and longtime advocate and international speaker on open government, open data, e-government, m-government, transformative/disruptive innovation, and smart cities/intelligent communities. To know exactly what you're all about. His involvement in civil society and nonprofits includes being the current executive director and board chair for the GOOD Association and current member of the Open Data Charter Implementation Working Group, previous senior associate for Open North, Canada ambassador for Open Knowledge Foundation, appointed Access by Design ambassador by Dr. Ann Kavukian, inaugural chair for Gov 2.0 committee with the Municipal Information System Association, Ontario, and a past president of B Spatial, formerly Eureka, Ontario. Okay. So, moving forward to look at OFKN, which is the Open Knowledge Foundation. Fair, sustainable, and open future, if you say so. Our mission is to create a free, fair, and open future, advancing open knowledge as a design principle beyond just data. We will do it by creating tools, developing models, harnessing communities, and advocating for standards and policies in a sustainable, ethical, and agile manner. So, it seems very much as well, too, like a lot of this inclusivity or the idea of no one being left behind is actually more like a twisting of language because people are more like forced into their programs and forced to do certain things as a result of pressure and coercion. And that's not really being inclusive, it's being forceful. But the thing is, with the Sustainable Development Agenda and the illusion of transparency, they're always using the reverse type of language of what they mean, such as sustainable development not meaning anything having to do with sustainability, but more like a monopoly and control over different avenues, such as data, information, or even food. So, this is the CEO, Renata Avila. She's an international lawyer, author, and advocate, and she brings nearly 20 years of experience in access to knowledge, freedom of expression, policy making, and global digital rights. Renata is an affiliate with the Stanford Institute of Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. Renata is part of the World Economic Forum Expert Network on Digital Technologies and a member of the Global Board of Trustees of Digital Future Society, among other affiliations in a vast professional network extending across Europe, Latin America, and North America. She co-founded the A+ Alliance for Inclusive Algorithms, the Progressive International and Polylateral Association, an international platform cooperative for knowledge workers. So there we have the World Economic Forum connection once again, which again we'll probably not see the last of it in this video. So, and then we could see Jerry Conga as part of the Open Knowledge Foundation of Canada. So, I'm not going to reread his description once again, but Evidence for Democracy is up next, and we get that through Vanessa Sung. She's the interim executive director of Evidence for Democracy, a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization promoting the transparent use of evidence in government decision-making in Canada. And prior to this role, she served as a policy advisor to the Chief Science Advisor of Canada, where much of her efforts were focused on strengthening connections between the science, policy, and political communities through delivery of key initiatives such as the Chief Science Advisors Youth Council and expert panel on said word I cannot say. She holds a PhD in biochemistry from McGill University, and as a graduate student, she was a co-president of Science and Policy Exchange, a student-led nonprofit that empowers the student voice in diverse science policy issues. She also previously sat on the board of directors at Communitas, a community-based restorative justice organization in Montreal. And she's an enthusiastic advocate for increased community and civic engagement from scientists, and is dedicated to creating positive impact at the intersection of science, public policy, and social justice. Evidence for Democracy, E4D, is the leading fact-driven, nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization promoting the transparent use of evidence in government decision-making in Canada. And through research, education, and issues campaigns, we engage and empower the science community while cultivating public and political demand for evidence-informed decision-making. And your analyses are intended for use by government, industry, NGOs, and the public to strengthen the inclusion, evidence-informed decision-making and policy. So there we have inclusion once again set right into this agenda over here. And when it comes down to considering evidence, only certain pieces of evidence are really considered, especially when the political narrative really dictates what kind of evidence would even be considered acceptable at the current time, especially of relating to the coercive measures that have taken place over different periods of time throughout Canada. So I'm going to read about Barry Kong very briefly, as he is the Treasury Board, as he is the Executive Director of Open Government and Portals through the Treasury Board of Canada, and then I will move forward to the next person immediately after. So Barry Kong is the Executive Director of the Open Government and Portals Division in the Office of the Chief Information Officer at the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. In his role, Barry is working to mainstream inclusion, once again, accountability, transparency, and civic participation in government while managing Canada's open government and open data portal and access to information privacy digital service. Barry's career in the public service includes the Canada Border Services Agency, where he held roles within the Pacific region as well as in headquarters. He was responsible for various national policies, programs, and projects, and in 2016 brought his extensive experience in policy, program management, and operations to TBS as the Director of Outreach and Operations in the Information and Privacy Policy Division, and most recently he was the Director of Open Portals, where he continued to digitize services for Canadians to more easily access government and their own personal information. What about leaving all of the people behind in Northern Ontario or different rural parts where people don't even have access to the internet? So then Emily Gusba is next. She is the Director General, Government Record Branch, Library and Archives Canada, and she is an experienced information professional whose mission is to connect people quickly and easily with a reliable, trustworthy information and data that they need. And she holds a Master of Library and Information Science from University of Western Ontario, and has worked in information management and libraries since 2008. She's worked in the federal government since 2010 in transportation, science, regulatory, and heritage portfolios, and she led Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission's debut into open government, and she is committed to robust, proactive access to information in the ongoing story of Canada. So I'm going to look a little bit more closely at her resume here, as I have already sort of gone over her resume in some depth, but we could see that she works as the Director of Digital Collaboration and Information for the RCMP in particular, and we will see other references to the RCMP throughout this video as well, because quite a few members on that stakeholder platform in particular are actually part of the RCMP or have experience working for the RCMP. Christopher Allison, the Director General, Data Management, Innovation and Analysis and Chief Data Officer, Public Health Agency of Canada. So he is the Director General of Data Management, Innovation and Analysis and Chief Data Officer at the Public Health Agency of Canada. And he's worked in government for 21 years across operations, policing, immigration, national security, policy, major projects, air travel, open source, data development, and leadership. And he's a self-driven, continuous leader who's passionate about people, network analytics, and systems, seeing the connections between our people, our environments, our systems, and our organizations. So once again, streamlined and being connected with the virtual world, so to speak, through the use of open data. That's what the whole board is all about in general, but in particular focusing on Chris, his background with the RCMP. He ended up patrolling with the Toronto Police Service and conducted surveillance and counter-smuggling activities, again, as an RCMP officer working with the TPS, and he participated in public relations duties in Japan, managed national security activities with the Canada Border Services Agency, and he developed legislation, regulations, and policy on import, export, and cross-border law enforcement operations, and contributed to the rewriting of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Program. Created and lead a community of passionate managers in Public Safety Canada, and worked to improve the traveler experience with the CBSA, and currently lead the Government of Canada's Enterprise Social Network and Wiki, working to build a single, collaborative, and high-performing public service to better serve Canadians. And he's reverse mentored 3 deputy ministers, and as well it mentions he's an avid Python and Go developer. So those are different programs used for programming, to my knowledge, and breaking down codes and that kind of a thing. I don't have an experience in that kind of department, but I'm pretty sure that's Python's function. And then we have here as well, so we know he's worked for public health. He was the Director General of Digital Services of the Canada School of Public Service. He also worked at the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, and like I said, public safety, and as well the RCMP. And we're going to notice some connections here with the RCMP in particular, because Jeff Ball is the Director of Open Government and Data Governance of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He is leading the development and advancement of transparency in the interest of trust and accountability in policing. Jeff is also responsible for the development and implementation of a trusted data governance framework to ensure the responsible and ethical creation, collection, storage, use, and release of high-quality data in the RCMP. With over 17 years of experience in the federal public service, leading numerous data and information services and advocating for increased transparency for public good, Jeff holds a Bachelor's of Social Science from the University of Ottawa with specialization in criminology and psychology. So, a little bit of a deeper look at his resume here. We could see he's actually been employed with the RCMP for a much longer period of time than let on. So, he was the Director of Information Management for 4 years, manager of IM Policy, and various pieces of information management throughout his RCMP career. and has been employed with the RCMP for over 15 years from the looks of it. Now, in particular, I just want to go over some programs here. I don't really want to talk about the programs in depth, but just some of the corresponding ministries of government that are relevant to this video, having to do with data collection and such. So with climate change and sustainable growth, we can see different organizations here, such as Statistics Canada is probably the most relevant one here. And I believe Statistics Canada is also actually part of ISED, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, which is formerly known as Industry Canada. And this particular program is called Fiscal, Financial, and Corporate Transparency. And all of these programs come from this action plan here, which is Canada's Action Plan 2022 to 2024. I'm going to read just a very little bit of it, very briefly eventually. So people-centered approach to justice here. The leading institutions, we have Justice Canada and, of course, the RCMP. And a lot of the policy areas that you will actually see in particular across the board with these are e-government, open data, justice, and inclusion in particular, and access to information and that sort of a thing, as well as a focus on public policy from the looks of things in particular. So again, open data, e-government, and then we see Statistics Canada and the Employment and Social Development Canada plays a large role in what is going on as well. I'm pretty sure they're a part of ISED as well, as ISED is kind of, again, what Industry Canada was renamed when it got a structural change, and there are little tiny sub-departments, if you will, such as Stats Canada that are part of ISED, if that makes sense. So with Canada's National Action Plan on Open Government, we can see here that they're part of the Sustainable Development Agenda, the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals are a global call to action to tackle the world's most pressuring challenges, such as poverty, inequality, and climate change. Government of Canada adopted a strategy and an implementation plan to achieve these goals and tracks its progress through the Open SDG Hub, which we will look at. But before I even look at the Open SDG Hub, I just want to show you the CEO of OpenGov, and he is as well the co-founder of OpenGov, the particular cloud network that I've shown in different videos on the OpenGov website, where you see different corporations that are listed there essentially. And just to be clear as well, I got attacked for that particular video. In particular, people I think were thinking that I was inciting that because you had a corporation, you were on board with the Sustainable Development Agenda, which that is not the case. Just because you incorporate something, it doesn't make you part of the Sustainable Development Agenda. I'm focusing on the bodies that revolve around civil society, government, and those that basically absorb data and are subscribed to the open data philosophy of sorts, and the illusion of transparency, which they will, refer to as inclusion and nobody getting left behind. But again, it's more about showing you the information, but in a way that the public has a hard time being able to digest, as nobody can really read through the sustainable development type of lingo that is used. There is a lot of particular buzzwords that are used that tend to mean the exact opposite of what it is they're saying. Again, sustainable development being a euphemism for control and genocide, essentially. So, Zach Bookman is the CEO of OpenGov, the GovTech cloud software leader. OpenGov has raised $200 million in capital from Andreessen Horowitz and other venture funds, and powers more than 1,000 cities, counties, and state agencies across the United States. And before co-founding OpenGov, Zach served as an advisor to U.S. Army General H.R. McMaster on the Anti-Corruption Task Force at the ISAF headquarters in Kabul, Afghanistan. He previously practiced trial litigation at Kecker, Van Nest and Peters in San Francisco, and served as law clerk to the Honorable Sandra S. Ikuta on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Zach studied corruption in Mexico as a Fulbright Fellow and has taught American government at San Quentin Prison, and he holds a JD from the Yale Law School, an MPA from the Harvard University School, and graduated valedictorian from the University of Maryland. Zach serves on the board of and as advisor to various technology companies and funds, and is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the YPO. He has been named a World Economic Forum technology pioneer, the Goldman Sachs 100 Most Intriguing Entrepreneurs in San Francisco, and Silicon Valley Business Journal 40 Under 40. So Silicon Valley, Goldman Sachs, and the World Economic Forum. So once again, we see the World Economic Forum and the Council on Foreign Relations, which works hand in hand with the United Nations. We see, again, a sort of intersection between different organizations, if you will, and a sort of common ground between, again, the United Nations and the World Economic Forum here, having to do with data management in an indirect manner. So and of course, collecting this sort of data and presenting it in the manner in which that they are has to do with the Sustainable Development Agenda. So, national statistics, this is the this is the data hub, the Sustainable Development Goal open data source here of Canada. So we can see that national statistics are central to reporting on the SDGs, and it's the responsibility of national statisticians to provide data and statistics to support the measurement and achievement of the SDGs, and this includes identifying appropriate data sources and methodologies to produce the statistics corresponding to SDG indicators. And Statistics Canada is a trusted producer of high quality, robust, impartial statistical information to support SDGs. You can't be impartial and support the SDGs. You just literally revealed your political agenda. Working in partnership with government departments, the private sector, NGOs, and international organizations. So again, that's Stats Canada being on board with the Sustainable Development Agenda, and I'll read what it is they have to say in particular here. So, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada, and like I said, Stats Canada is just part of ISED, as ISED is like a giant umbrella, if you will, with subgroups attached to it, such as Stats Canada. Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada is Canada's domestic industry department with a $3.2 billion operating budget in 2019 and 2020. ICD's legislative responsibility for sustainable development is defined in its founding act, the Department of Industry Act, 1995, which mandates the minister to strengthen the national economy and promote sustainable development. Flowing from this commitment and later under the Federal Sustainable Development Act, 2008, IACD has produced departmental sustainable development strategies, or DSDS, since 1997. So, in particular, we could see that the DSDS outlines its 3-year forward-looking commitments in support of the 2019 to 2022 Federal Sustainable Development Strategy and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It is a product of months of collaboration and analytic work within ISCD and its portfolio. ISCD also recognized that this thing which I cannot say has altered the environment in which ISCD's DSDS actions and indicators operate, and plans to monitor its activities and make adjustments to commitments as necessary over the course of the 3-year strategy. So, alright, they're operating in conjunction with the particular coercive measures that had taken place. And in particular here, I just want to cite just some of the sustainable development goals that the RCMP, or on board with, in particular, Sustainable Development Goals 5, 11, and 16. So 5 has to do with gender inclusion, and number 11 has to do with public safety, and number 16 has to do with the open data kind of agenda there, if you will. So I'll let you read for yourself, in particular, some of the others, but Sustainable Goal 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access and justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Sensitive and specialized investigative services through the NCECC will continue to pursue online child sexual exploitation investigations, identify victims, and remove them from abusive situations, and will bring offenders to justice, including those who offend abroad. Through its Open Government Office, the RCMP will assess additional operational information data sets for release in 2022 to 2023. It will also work on maturing disclosures of police information into a full open government service to enhance public consumption of RCMP data and information, if you say so. So I want to read the RCMP 3 oaths in particular that you swear upon joining, and the appropriate response to each of these is, I do so swear. So first you have the Oath of Allegiance. Do you solemnly swear that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors according to the law, so help you God? I do so swear, should be the response. Oath of Office. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of you as a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and will well and truly obey and perform all lawful orders and instructions that you receive without fear, favor, or affection of or towards any person, so help you God? I do so swear. Now the Oath of Secrecy. Do you solemnly swear that you will keep absolutely secret all knowledge and information of which you may become possessed through your position with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that you will not, without due authority in that behalf, discuss with members of the force or any other person, either by word or by letter, any matter which you may come to your notice through your employment with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Service, so help you God? I do so swear. So, here's the thing. There is no sort of oath sworn to the people, and I don't really agree with the principle of swearing oaths because your word is your bond. However, what I'm saying is that the oaths are all directed toward the Crown or the police service itself, and there's nothing about we the people, and there's nothing I can see about police actually showing that they work for we the people. The argument that I've heard people make is that your tax dollars pay for them, but you don't really have say over where your tax dollars go when you pay them. So that's not really definitive of the police service working for you whatsoever. So, in particular, this I want to read, I find interesting. In recognition of the RCMP's 150th anniversary and the upcoming coronation of His Majesty King Charles III in May, the RCMP is pleased to announce that RCMP musical Ride Horse Noble will be presented to His Majesty King Charles III. Details about the ceremony will be released at a later date, and it shared a personal connection to the RCMP as our honorary commissioner since 2012. So King Charles III is the honorary commissioner of the RCMP. I just thought that that was worth noting. And I want to conclude this video by showing this list that may not entirely be up to date, but there are some members of Canadian Parliament that are part of the World Economic Forum. So most obviously we have Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, and then we have Jagmeet Singh. Pierre Poilievre was on the website but was removed, and Maxime Bernier attended a WEF meeting in 2008, but I haven't found evidence to indicate that he is an official member of the WEF. So part of the federal government, we have Navdeep Bains, who was part of ISED in 2015, I believe. John Baird, who was a Minister of Foreign Affairs that actually works quite closely with Pierre Poilievre. And then we have Randy Boissonnault and Philip Francois Champagne, who are members of ISED, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. Michelle Rampel-Gardner, I've seen her name kind of tossed around, and Karina Gold in Burlington, if you've driven through there. I've seen her name posted throughout. Stephen Harper, which is former Prime Minister of Canada, part of the Conservative Party. Jason Kenney comes as no surprise. Our current Minister of Foreign Affairs, Melanie Joly, Bill Morneau, and several others here. Mary Ng as well, part of ISED. Andrew Scheer coming as no surprise. And Mary Simon, the Governor General. And I'll just scroll through here and see if there are other names that people happen to recognize, or anybody from their corresponding provinces that they'll be able to identify. You know, John Tory, Doug Ford, Jim Watson, and, you know, of course, Jason Kenney, like I pointed out earlier, and so on and so forth. But again, this list might not be entirely up to date, so I just thought it was worth showing. I mean, everybody knows that the World Economic Forum has pretty well pierced any sort of political party in existence from the looks of things, or at least one political party in each country from the looks of things. But I just think it's worth pointing out some of the people here, as we can see some prominent faces, like the person who started Telegram in particular, or like Mark Zuckerberg, for instance. So, all in all, I just want to say that there's an illusion of transparency and an illusion of data being open for anybody to look at and acquire information. However, it's all conveyed in a manner in which people cannot really read through the buzzwords, if you will, and it's hard to tell what it is that's actually being said when you can't read beyond what's in front of you, and they're always going to present something very horrible as something very nice, and tend to implement what is called the law of reversal within their language. So, all in all, I just want to say that in future videos, I'll be covering some of the more bigger power players in what you'll call black nobility. As we can see, some of the people that I've just pointed out in this video are people that a lot of us know already within that of politics, and then as well other people that are sort of operating just behind them, but it's not exactly hard to find through a federal government website, right? So I'll be looking at some of the black nobility in particular in future videos, as well as covering other issues within the Corporation of Canada, being that this is registered in Washington, D.C. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and thanks for watching.